And just like that, we've got 50 in the room. Thank you very much. It's a beautiful day outside in southeastern Michigan. I got 61 degrees and sunshine. I wore a windbreaker today, but there really was no need. But, we've got quite an active group of people hanging out here, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Paul Van Sortvoort checked in, but it said, sorry, cannot represent the Netherlands today. So I assume that means you have to check back out again. But hey, at least you showed up for attendance. The Fuse Man, neither can I. Get the bad jokes out when nobody's here. Sun City, Lincoln Hills fun. Good morning for sunny Northern California, 70 degrees today. And Gary Vogt checked in, and thank you very much, Gary. I have to tell you, Gary sent me a copy of this book, Dear Gang. And I'm going to mention this right now, hoping that Gary is still in the room, because Gary published a book about his time in Vietnam. And that's a picture of the young Gary on the front, and that's a picture of the present-day Gary on the back. And what it is, it's the letters that he wrote home while in Vietnam back in the day. And literally, it's like a time capsule. I found it fascinating. And as a historian, we're always looking for original documents, primary documents. And so to really understand what it was like, you could go find somebody who was there and talk to them today, or you could read their correspondence from back then. It's absolutely fascinating. I loved the book. Benefits, some of the profits from the book apparently do go to benefit charities. But Gary, it's interesting. Not a lot of people want to be so honest as to say, let me open up a big chunk of my life and let total strangers read about it. But he basically took all the letters he wrote home to his parents and other relatives that were saved and just published them along with a bunch of photographs, because he was a photographer in the military, and got a lot of insight about what it was like to be in Vietnam back then, and what his thoughts of home were about, which often apparently is motorcycles and cars. But thank you very much, Gary. Gary sent it. And I jokingly said, hey, anybody sends me a book, I'll do a book report. But I appreciate that very much. So thank you. Ray Heighton, evening, Steve from the UK. Davey Mac, hi, Steve. Good videos this last week. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. It's always hit or miss. Oh, and Gary's still here. Thank you. I appreciate that. Richard R. is in Minneapolis, 54F, heading up to 60F. Right now, I've got 61 where I am, and it's going to head up to 64 or so, they tell me. So I'll take 60s. I've been running now, but in the afternoons, and later on, I'll be able to run in the mornings. So Mark Hoover checking in. Good morning. Or good afternoon, Steve. Jordan Alsup, howdy from Sarnia, Steve. Glad to be here. I'm glad you're here, my friend, as well. Mike Torello, hello, Steve. Matthew Shostrom, if you want to know about what it was like, just talk to Cy Robertson, Duck Dynasty. Yeah. Dave Beddoes almost slept in, but I made it. Hello from White Rock, British Columbia. Somebody jokingly said, hey, Steve, you put up 2 videos this morning. And one of the videos, the full title of the book is Dear Gang by Gary Vogt, V-O-G-T. And the subtitle is Letters Home from a Combat Photographer with the First Air Cav in Vietnam. Dear Gang. And that's how the letters often started, was Dear Gang. So, like I said, I highly recommend it. And Gary points out that the book is, in fact, available from Amazon. So there you go. Zaphod Beeblebrox, my favorite 2-headed alien. Hi, Steve. How are you? But somebody jokingly this morning said, hey, Steve, you put up 2 videos this morning by 11 a.m. Like, don't you sleep in? No, I don't. I hate to say it. And it does go back to when I delivered the Free Press. I had a morning paper route. I used to get up every morning. Didn't matter what day of the week it was. You had to get up in the morning, deliver the papers. And I did that for years. And so if I'm on vacation and I'm really in the right mindset, I can sleep in. Most mornings I'm up by 6:15, 6:30. Doesn't matter. Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, Thursday. It doesn't matter. I get up in the morning. So I just get stuff going. Sat1 says, go live with Rick. If you're referring to Rick, Rick Gore says hi. Rick and I have communicated back and forth, and Rick's got a website. It's got Good Luck America, a channel on YouTube, and I think it used to be called Think Like a Cop, but anyways, it's the same guy. Great guy. He and I have spoken a few times, and we keep wanting to do a thing together. And I said, we will, but he called me kind of late in the week and I couldn't do it. And he uses StreamYard, but I don't. So we could probably get something together, but it just didn't happen this week, maybe next week. I don't know if we'll do a mutual live stream. I don't know if we can do that, but we will definitely get one where I'm on his show and one where he's on my show. So I like doing those. It's just a matter of getting everything coordinated. Oh, boy. So, anyways, Ronald Knight. Hey, the Steve San Antonio says hi. Tom, I subbed for a paperboy for a week. I still think it's one of the toughest jobs ever, especially in the days when you had the shoulder thing and you had to carry the weight like a mailman's bag. Very, very heavy. Very, very heavy. So I'm surprised it didn't stunt my growth. Stephen Brannon, if you had to, for whatever reason, change your law specialty, what area would you change to? Oh, that's tough. I don't know. Because I've been doing consumer protection law and lemon law stuff for a long period of time. I've done other stuff. I'm not sure if I enjoy any of it more than any other. Believe it or not, I like doing some criminal defense work, which I did do some of, but it's so radically different from doing civil litigation that I didn't actually pursue that because lemon law was more fun. So Dennis Berman, hey, Steve Dallas is in the house. Ed McDonald, I worked at a casino here in Shreveport. We had a 500-room hotel. Bed bug infestation was always a problem. We'd average about one hot room per week. So, Steve Taylor, Steve from Saskatchewan says hi. Thanks for checking in. Shrewd Ness says, always read your books and your recommendations. Thank you for them. I apologize for not knowing, but someone mailed me this book, The Last Duel. And this is one of the greatest books I'd never heard of before that someone just sent me and said, just trust me on this one, my friend. And it's a true story of crime, scandal, and trial by combat in medieval France by Eric Jaeger, The Last Duel. And it tells a story about in 1386, two guys who got in a feud back in the days when dueling meant literally one of you is going to live and one of you ain't going to live. And it tells the whole story, explains the whole thing. And it's an absolute great slice of history. And it's a wonderful book. And I highly recommend that one as well. Tryfinger says, Rick's got you up on his channel. Hang on a second. Oh boy. Let's see if we can do a kind of a time warp thing going here. Let's see here. There we go. Hang on. Popular uploads. Hang on. Created playlists. Videos. I'm not seeing how to get his live stream up over here. Oh, wait a second. Okay. Hang on. So apparently there's me on his channel, which means that his channel is on my channel. So at this point, it's like a Mobius strip. If you don't know what a Mobius strip is, you need to find out to understand that comment. But I appreciate that. So blah blah blah. They changed the sheets, but not the blankets. Well, yeah, that would be a problem. What is the shirt you're wearing? This is a shirt I used to wear more often, but I stopped wearing it simply because I thought it would worn out its welcome on my regular show. But it says Copper Harbor Fire Department. Copper Harbor is a town at the very, very tip of the Keweenaw Peninsula, way, way, way north end of Michigan. Little town up there is one of my favorite places on earth, and I know a bunch of people who live there year round. So, DePaul 31 points out that the Michigan Wolverines have a shot to make the Final Four this year. Go Blue, and that's good. I'm a big fan of the Wolverines. Their basketball programs had hit or misses over the years, but this year they're doing very, very well. I'm a big fan of Juwan Howard, who's the coach now, but he played there years ago, back in the good old days. So, Eric, the traveling scuba diving bugman, says, I saw you on VinWiki. Did you get to meet Ed and any of the other guys? I met Ed. I did not meet any of the other guys. Ed is a really, really nice guy. And I'm going to tell you something you might not realize. He's taller than me. 6'4". I met him. I go, dude, how tall are you? And it was funny because he took me to lunch. We shot a bunch of videos. I think 3 have gone up now. And we shot a bunch of videos. And he took me to lunch in his Murcielago Lamborghini. And getting into it, I jokingly said, well, I know how to get into this because it looks about as difficult as getting into my Viper. And we were both laughing about it. And I realized that, in my Viper, I had the seats lowered and it's still like really, really close to the top of my head. I don't know if he could ride in my Viper without like slouching down or something. So G. Vogt says, I believe the crossed axes always indicate a fire department. Yeah, it's a common symbol for the fire department. You'll see an axe of some sort as well. So it does say Copper Harbor, Michigan, but that's not as easy to read, I understand. Mr. Phil, 1969, says, Steve, in the drone warrant video, you never mentioned air rights. The feds say you have typically air rights 500 feet above your property. Well, and they could go higher than that. And you have to understand, and I didn't want to get into property law because it varies wildly from state to state. People always get bent when I don't go off on the tangents they want me to go off on. I'm not referring to yours, but others. And so, for instance, when you buy a piece of property, generally speaking, you own straight up and straight down. Now, obviously, if the earth is a sphere, if straight down doesn't go straight down this way, it actually goes straight like that towards the core on a slight degree. However, your rights also go up. That's why you can build a 2-story house or a 3-story house or a 75-story tower in a city. And obviously, you got to get permission to do those kinds of things. But technically speaking, you own this. And what happens is that the airspace is regulated, and they've basically said, look, airplanes are allowed to fly in that airspace. They don't own the airspace, though. They're just passing through it. So you do own up and down from your property lines. How far? I'm not going to get into that. I've had someone else complain and say, but Steve, you don't own it below you if you don't have the mineral rights. No, you do own it. You just don't own the mineral rights. And mineral rights are the right to extract the minerals. But you still own the ground. Just because someone else has the rights to come in and extract something doesn't mean they own it. So it might be too picayune an argument to have. So there you go. Richard Wood, and greetings, Steve Lehto and company from Cape Town, South Africa. Thank you for checking, my friend. Graham Mills, afternoon, Mr. Lehto. 55 Siddell, I'm eating a salad for lunch and enjoying the stream. Barry G. Hello, Steve. My car was towed a couple of years ago at a tow truck hired by a construction company. They simply moved my car into a bike lane where I got a ticket for $115. And that's a lot like the video I just did talking about how Philadelphia has a courtesy system where they will find your car and they'll move it someplace, and sometimes they'll dump it someplace illegal and cause more trouble for you. So I'm not really sure how good of a courtesy it is. Rick 0000 says, in New York, if you discover gold on your property, you cannot keep it. Are we talking about mineral gold or like gold coins, or does someone else own the mineral rights on your property? Dan Low Fat, Steve, how low can you go? I know he said, how low can we go? But, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure if anybody's ever actually bought a piece of property and started tunneling to see how low they can get. I know that in the copper country of Michigan, up not far from this area, there was a couple mines up there that had drilled holes into the earth that were more than a mile deep, like 9,000 feet down. So, I mean, that's a mind boggler if you think about them doing it, like, say, 1910, 1920. So, Tom says FAA regs state that airplane must remain 1,000 feet above a populated area. And yes, and 90 Knots will also tell us about this because I believe she's knowledgeable in the airplane arts. But there's different rules regarding how high airplanes are allowed to fly, or how low actually, at what minimum altitudes they must be above. And it depends on a couple of things. One is, are you over a populated area? Are there buildings nearby? And are you coming into land or taking off? Because obviously you can drop below these guidelines if you're landing, right? And likewise, if there's a building that's 1,000 feet tall, you can't, you got to go above it. So there's a bunch of rules about how much clearance you need to have, or how much clearance you ought to have, and so on and so forth. So 90 Knots says, my house is in the flight pattern of a small airport. I played a soccer game in high school. I forgot what school it was at, but it was a school near Romulus, Michigan, which is where Detroit Metro Airport is. And it was in the landing pattern of Detroit Metro. And Detroit Metro, when it's busy, has a plane landing about every 60 seconds, just, for the entire game, it was doing that. It was annoying. And I thought, I wonder if I ever get used to that. Callisto 1, hi from Georgia. Demita 1968, hello from Saginaw. Thank you for checking in. Gotta enjoy the check-ins from Michigan. Duncan Campbell from Melbourne, Australia, checking in again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. FDSS says, I love the drone video. It's amazing they thought they could travel up to someone's bathroom window. Well, that's the thing where these always fall apart, is you start discussing, oh, if this is okay, then this must be okay. Well, no, that wouldn't be okay. But, and so a lot of people ask and said, wait a second, what if they got permission from the neighbors to stand on the neighbor's property and flew the drone straight up? And that's an interesting question, because then they're not invading this space. But then the question becomes, is it considered reasonable to launch a drone next door and spy? And remember that the Fourth Amendment says reasonable and unreasonable are what we're talking about. So what was reasonable or unreasonable, every set of facts is going to be a whole different argument. So there you go. Laura, hello from Texas. Hello, Laura. Irving Briscoe, the Wright Hargraves mine in Kirkland Lake, Ontario, was the deepest mine in the Kirkland Lake camp with workings at the 8,200 foot level. What were they mining there? I'm not familiar with that area, but that's deep. And what I'm getting at when I'm talking about the copper country is those guys were mining at the time using hammers, chisels, and just to a smaller degree, stuff that would explode. I may have just gotten demonetized. I don't know. So, pissed off handicapped guy, Uber checking in. Thank you for checking in, my friend. Where in the UP? Barry G, how is the Ford Explorer doing? I've got two. I've got an 02 and a 2019. They're both doing very well. In fact, I took the 2019 to a car wash yesterday, and actually, quarter car wash, as we call it. But it's doing great. It's got about, I think, 20,000 miles on it. And I've had it 2 years. So, and then the 02 Ford Explorer's got 160 on it, I think. And it's just run like a champ. Melissa Clark, when's the last time someone got a ticket for littering? I'm sure it must happen, but it's funny. I've never had anybody tell me they got a ticket for littering, although it's not a moving violation. So I can't imagine anybody would call me and say, Steve, I need your help on this. James Campbell says, actually, it's 1 kilometer within 5 miles of the runway and designated wind flow, thus the windsock and air traffic controller. There is no bright line answer to some of these questions. Carlton Rutherford says, hi, Steve, from Vancouver, Canada. My junior high school was in the landing path of the Vancouver airport. Eventually, you do get used to the plane noise. Okay. Melissa Clark, state of Maine, is in a crisis. There's trash everywhere from all these out-of-staters who vacation here through COVID-19. Oh, it's too bad. Oh, by the way, I did acquire some new bumper stickers. I got to find a way to display bumper stickers the same way I'm displaying license plates. This one is, of course, from Nanaimo, the Wave 102.3 FM. And then this one is from the Medicine Hat 105.3 Rock. Medicine Hat, which is one of my favorite town names of all time. Gotta love the Medicine Hat. Joel Kirschman says, hey, instead of tickets for littering, how about prison time? Todd G, what kind of vehicles had that Ford dual clutch transmission? Was it in all of them? No, it was just the Focus and the, help me out, people. It's just two of the smaller cars had them. So like the Explorers didn't have them, the trucks don't have them. It's just the Festiva and the Focus. Thank you. Nika Tapavara checking in after a very warm sauna here in Lapland. Wow. Well, of course, in Lapland this time of year, you probably still need a sauna to get the blood flowing. Tom says, hey, Steve, there must be a mailbox black hole in your area. I sent a shirt for you on the 15th. The message I just received was on the way, but maybe late. Well, 6 days ago. That's, nowadays, you don't think it'll get there in 3 days. You just automatically have to think 3 weeks. Susan Johnson, hi from Yipsy. Thank you for checking in, my friend. B. Demon points out that Arlo Guthrie got a ticket for littering. And a rather convoluted litigation followed. Oh, the Fiesta, not Festiva. Yeah, there you go. Jason Johnson, thank you very much. Fiesta. I knew it was an F word. Yeah, Aaron D says the Korla borehole in Russia is now the deepest. Yeah, and that was literally just, I think it was a hole they just drilled just to see how deep they could drill a hole, right? Which, you got to have hobbies, I guess. Dixie Champagne wonders, are there really two girls for every boy? Surf City. Yeah, FDSS says I could get a double-sided display board, but the question is, do I like rotate it? When I forget to move the $100 bill, I get grief. By the way, I don't know if anybody's spouted off on the $100 bill yet, so we'll see. Steve Taylor says, I'm a potash miner. We are just 3,300 feet. Some landowners have mineral rights, but nobody gets them now if you buy property. Yeah, it's interesting how some of those property rights happened to where the mineral rights got separated so long ago, nobody even knows anymore, So Donnie D didn't Mary Hartman live next to an airport back in the day? I didn't watch that show. Yeah, Aaron D says, yeah, the borehole in Russia, allegedly they could hear screaming. That's one of those like Weekly World News headlines, where you'd actually see a thing that goes, scientists have uncovered hell, or scientists have proven the existence of hell. And then it'll talk about the borehole, and they quote some unnamed Russian scientist who said, yeah, as soon as we turned the drill off, we could hear screaming and shrieking down there. Oh, boy. Terry Alexander says there's a Miami curfew for spring break. Yeah, I've been following that on the Daily Mail because they love just anything that happens in America. And there's been a big spring break brouhaha going down in the beaches of Florida and Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and all that. And at first, everyone's having fun, and then suddenly, somehow, it just it turned ugly real fast. So they've been trying to impose a curfew, which is kind of hard to do. And so then it turned into a big, I think at one point they called them the SWAT team, but who knows? Blue Oddball says, hey, Steve, checking in from Poplar Bluff, Missouri. People complain about the airport noise, but 90% of the time the airport was there long before the houses were built. No, and that's absolutely true. That's one of the funnier things about this is that there'll be something, whether it's an airport or a pig farm. I've joked about this one before too, that I've been downwind of a pig farm in the summertime, and it's noticeable. There's a pig farm the other way. That, okay? And so if you bought a house in the wintertime and the first warm day you opened a window, whoa, what's that? It's a pig farm. It's been there for 20 years. Whose fault is that? And you always get this where people start complaining about stuff when it was there before they got there. And so it's kind of hard not to notice, like, say, an airport. So there you go. Laura, what is the solution to the post office issues? Did you see my note about my experience? Your note doesn't ring a bell. I apologize, but the solution to the post office issues probably is to put somebody in charge who knows what they're doing and do a management shakeup of some sort. I had several people tell me that, the post office issues go back to the beginning of time, and that's not true. They've obviously gotten worse in the last few years. So Gordon 861 says the Daily Mail just loves an excuse to post pictures of drunk girls half dressed. That could be it too. Dust Blaster, hello from Chile. Jason Johnson, I live 1 mile from a railroad crossing. Not great. I actually at one point in time lived about 3 city blocks from an at-grade railroad crossing where the actual arms came down and stopped traffic both ways. And when the train would go through, apparently by federal regulations, they've got to blow the whistle. It doesn't matter what time it is, day or night. And so you'd hear a rumbling off in the distance, and all of a sudden you hear the 4 o'clock in the morning, and you kind of got used to it. But the problem is it was random. If you're in the landing pattern or takeoff pattern of an airport or path, if they're coming in every single minute, obviously you can kind of get used to that. But just the random trains. Mr. Phil, 1969, or a racetrack. We lost Raceway Park in Englishtown because new neighbors were bitching. Well, that's too bad. And part of that problem, of course, is the racetrack is only operating pretty much in the summertime, probably on the weekends. So somebody's out house shopping in the wintertime, and what a quiet little area. And they don't notice there's a thing over here called, racetrack, which on Saturdays becomes a noisy affair. So track had been there since 1967. Wow. Yeah, I've been to the Hickory Motor Speedway a couple times in North Carolina, one of my favorite racetracks on earth. Little tiny place. They paved it, unfortunately, but it was dirt for the longest time. And that's where Bobby Isaac got started, and Neil Jarrett, and Ned Jarrett, and a lot of old time guys. The Petties raced there, David Pearson raced there, and it's kind of out on the edge of town. But I suspect that on Saturdays, that place, most Saturdays, that place is just like one big festival, So, Nels points out that Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland has the same problem. They've been testing big guns there since World War I, and now people build their houses and complain about the banging. Yeah, the good news, Aberdeen Proving Grounds, that's a government facility, right? You can complain all you want. Ain't nothing going to change. I've never been to Aberdeen, but I know people who have. And the Aberdeen Proving Ground is, in essence, it's among other things, it's a big torture track for government testing of things like army tanks and trucks and so on. And I know that after World War II, for instance, when we captured a lot of stuff, we brought some of it back to the proving grounds and tested it there. So, that's been going on for a long, long time. So I suspect they'd have a hard time complaining about that unless they got like a sympathetic senator or congressman on their side. And even then, it's a problem. Ram 50 V8 says, internet problems at my end have me texting on a computer and watching you on my TV. That's how things go these days. I've mentioned before, I've got a Peloton that I ride every morning. And I have a big screen TV in front of it. And it was easier for me to hook up a Fire Stick to it than to run my cable to it. So I've got to learn different controls. I've got them figured out, but it's one of those things. So Tabby's daddy's got a drag strip 2 miles from me. I didn't notice it much. Drag strip 2 miles away. Yeah, I guess that noise might carry. Depends on if they're racing like top fuelers there or not. Don Jackson, any thoughts about the lawsuit against Dave Ramsey? I'm not sure which one we're talking about. I know that he's been in the news a couple times recently, but I've not studied those news stories. I'm not sure if it's one lawsuit or two, and I don't know. So I don't have any thoughts on it yet. Mattawar, I live 400 feet from a railroad. Is it still active? And if so, then you must have stuff passing by. In fact, I lived at one point in time in a condominium that had a parking lot out back, and then it went down to a railroad bed. But the railroad wasn't that active. I believe there was a couple trains in the morning, a couple trains in the afternoon, and that was pretty much it. So it wasn't that bad, but it was so close that if a big freight train went by, you'd actually see stuff shaking in the condo. But that was a while ago. Irving Briscoe, try living within 500 feet of a military base designed to take off F-18s. They like to bolt them down and run their engines at full blow in the summer. Static testing, we call it. Yeah, there's a few things that are allowed on Earth, and big military jets are one of them. So, Jared Chown says, I believe Dale Sr. ran there, referring to Hickory Motor Speedway. I'm sure he did. Hickory, I mean, it's still operating. It's still operating as a like a minor league track. And they ran actual NASCAR races there in the early days, but then eventually they started going to bigger and bigger tracks. I forgot what size Hickory is. It's a small track. So when they say like the Hickory 100, it was 100 laps. It was not 100 miles. But it's a fascinating place simply because of how many people went through there and raced at that tiny little place. G. Vogue, did you read about the child killed by a Peloton? It has a Peloton treadmill. It was not the bicycle. But I read a little bit about it, and it's tragic. Nowhere Cam also asks about it. I didn't actually read that much about it, but obviously, you gotta keep kids away from stuff like that. It's heavy equipment. I need help to move my Peloton around the room. One person can't do it without really leaning into it. It's better off with two people. Leo Vitnen says, checking in from Finland, my city name has 2 vowels, both with umlauts, and 7 consonants that won't make you say it. Come on. At this point, I've given up really worrying that much about whether I can get these things right or not. But I would love to see what your city name is in Finland. I've heard of a lot of them because I'm familiar with my own genealogy. And my mother and father have visited Finland probably 10, 15 times. And I got lots of relatives who visited there as well. So I'm familiar with what Finnish place names look like. I'd be curious to see that one. So FDSS says the loudest sound ever recorded was a space shuttle launch at 192 decibels. Sounds loud. And I can imagine that being the case. And obviously, I'm sure you know, but sound increases exponentially as you get closer to it on some levels. So it also depends on how close you got to it when you measured it, which is not something you'd want to really do that haphazardly. Mr. Wolfie. Hi, Steve. Hello, Mr. Wolfie. Matwar says, Steve, yup, around 1 or 2 trains per day. Road crossings around 1 block away in each direction. Uses horn. Yeah, and it's it's cute at times. Other times it can be annoying. Diana Goodrich, a friend had an abode near where B-52 jets were fired up, be ready to fly. Between that and the Georgia cockroaches, he found other housing. Are you talking about the palmetto bugs that are like yay big? So they call them in Florida so they don't sound so bad with their cockroaches. But B-52s, again, very, very fascinating pieces of technology. Very, very big, very, very loud, and very, very scary. Suffer GM says, thank you, Steve. I appreciate your stream. Enjoy your storytelling skills and wealth of knowledge. I am part of the 6% of your viewers. I assume you mean that you're a female? And if so, thank you for sticking around. My channel's about 93, 94% male these days. So there you go. Dave Elrod says, I live 0.4 miles from a train track. Our house is so insulated, the noise doesn't bother me, but the doggos hate it. That's always, and I don't have dogs right now, but I remember, when you have dogs, you'll be sitting there and you'll think it's quiet. And all of a sudden one of your dogs will, or they'll both turn their heads and they hear something, but they ain't telling you just yet, you know. So, yeah, DFL123. I wonder how loud nuke testing was. Yeah, that's the question. Could you get a microphone close enough to ground zero to actually measure the explosion as it happened, and would the mic survive? Pat PA says the Peloton sucks in things at the back. The roller and track are not protected by a guard. Are you referring to? You must be referring to the treadmill, right? Okay. Rocky McAllister says whales can click as loud as 230 decibels. 230. That is loud. Of course, you got to get real close to hear that. Matthew Shostrom. So, Steve, do you have any rich Finnish family members that might leave you their entire estate in a suspicious email that would land in your spam folder? No, but I got one this morning that was allegedly from the head of the Treasury, saying that they've just finally cleared my money. So cool. Gary Weisenberger, I used to like the B-52s. I assume you mean the band. Rock Lobster. Mike M, I've got Blackhawks flying over my house nearly every day, and there isn't a base that close. You must follow the exact same path every flight. You know, a couple of years ago, I mentioned I lived down here, southwestern corner of the state of Michigan, and I was out riding my bike out in the country, out among some apple orchards, and all of a sudden I heard this whooshing noise, and right overhead, two warthogs, two A-10 warthogs, probably 100 feet, 200 feet off the ground, and they were doing this, you know, and I'm sure it was some kind of exercise. I got no problem with that. It's cool to see. I wish it had better warnings. I could have watched it longer, but it was pretty cool out in the middle of nowhere like that. So Johnny Smith says, I'm live on Rick Gore's channel. I suppose I still could be, although that was a while ago that we checked into that. So Tabby's daddy says, I'm not far from Kennedy Space Center. Some of those rockets are pretty loud. Yeah, I can imagine, you know, and you also see them from far away too, right? Mr. Phil 1969 asks a question, completely off topic, but why do I have so many drill bits? I've been sorting boxes of them for 3 of these live shows now. Well, you know, some things just tend to accumulate and you don't throw them away, so they just more and more of them pile up. It's like the junk drawer. Do you have a junk drawer in your kitchen? My junk drawer has got so much stuff in it, but there's certain things I know if I need one of these, it's in the junk drawer. It's in the junk drawer. And I always go in there and go, you know, it's getting too full. Maybe I should take something out of this. And no. Once it goes into the junk drawer, it doesn't come out unless you're using it or going to utilize it. Otherwise, it goes back in the junk drawer. So, you know, it's almost like a one-way. It's like the La Brea tar pits, I think. Stuff goes in, does not come out. So Duncan Campbell, does this mean you now owe the IRS money, which needs to be paid for its must be paid for an iTunes gift cards? The real question is, if you were to get the money sent to you by the vice president of Nigeria or whoever they claim to be, yeah, there would be tax consequences. Gordon 861 says it's always cheaper to buy a set of bits than just a couple of the right size. So you buy a set and have the same extras left over every time. That's true too. And I know that it's happened to me before where I'm convinced I've got a size of something and I can't find it. And you keep thinking I could go to Home Depot and buy a whole new set. You don't want to. It seems wasteful. And then 3 hours later, when you find it, you're like, wow, I saved myself a couple bucks, and you wasted 3 hours of your life you can't get back. David Peterson says, my wife says I have too many model trains, which is part of that accumulation theory. Is it possible to have too many model trains? I don't think so. Fortis Atticus says, I had a lot of ear infections as a child and teenager and could not hear for the first 5 years of my life. So now I have uber sensitive hearing and everybody is noisy and sometimes I have to wear earplugs. I understand that. You know, it's like if suddenly everything was too bright, you'd have to wear like sunglasses, right? And of course, they have the infamous 10 millimeter socket. So the funny thing is, I told you before, I put a trickle charger on my Viper over the winter, and I actually did it where I mounted the leads onto the battery terminals, or the electrical terminals. And when I went to take them off, I'm like, what size was the socket? I guessed wrong 4 times. Okay. And there's a time if you work enough on something, you'll eventually know, oh, that one's a 5/16, or that one's a 12 millimeter, or whatever it is. But it had been just long enough where I forgot. So Mike Geertz, I had a lot of ear infections growing up. We swam in the Grand River downstream from Grand Rapids a lot. That'll do it. Oh. Reinhardman says 1/4, 5/16, 3/8, and 1/2 are the ones you need. All others are extras. Jim Bergen, did you jack up the Viper to keep wheels from flat spotting? No, I actually came out and moved it around every couple of weeks. I came out, I had a space that was big enough to where I would actually fire it up, get it up to temperature, and then I would jockey it around a little bit, and then make sure it's parked in a different spot, and make a note to make sure the wheels didn't wind up the same spot over and over again. So what are you going to do? Kotaxista, I actually needed my 15/16 once. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Somebody's joking about other scams. I got the scam yesterday. Yesterday, I got the phone call that said, we have noticed suspicious activity on your Social Security number, and if you do not call us back, we will have you arrested. I actually clicked through and I got somebody and I gave them a piece of my mind. Got them to hang up on me. Diana Goodrich says, I hear when water runs somewhere in our house, saved our house when a pipe broke. I can tell you the opposite. I've been in a house before where I got really, really good at hearing the sump pump run, even though it was very, very hard to hear. And I would actually think to myself, when was the last time you heard that run? And then all you hear, okay, fine. And because in a house with an active sump pump, it's kind of like being in a sinking boat at all times. Dan Low Fat, if you have uber sensitive hearing, how much to rent that out for an hour? Yeah, they'll come to your place and listen for you for a while. Oh. Dave Beddoes had a mechanic call me and look on my rear subframe for a lost wrench. It was there even after a 20-mile drive home. A friend of mine texted me a photograph of his car where there was a set of vice grips clamped onto something in the suspension. And he drove the car home and he thought to himself, I should look to see what the new parts look like. And he looks down and there's a set of vice grips clamped to something. So it happens. Ram 50 V8 also got the SSA call yesterday. The suspicious activity in your Social Security number. Lee Harvey says adjustable metric crescent wrench works great on Chrysler products. Also, the problem is the Chrysler product needs it more often than the others do. Don't get me wrong, I like Mopar stuff, but lately, you know how that goes. Oh, David Peterson, of course, your PayPal account has been restricted for suspicious activities. Sure, why not? Exit the maze to the sun says, do lawyers charge for a piece of their mind? If we can. G Keyman 565 says, have you gotten your gas bill was overcharged? This is an apology call with a $50 gift card and 30. No, I've not heard that one. But, nowadays, almost anything you get where they're calling you, it's going to be a scam. Canadian Robot Lady says, hey, how's everyone doing on this first full day of spring? Yay, spring. Of course, in Canada, the first day of spring, I'm not sure. Do you guys have visible grass yet, or do you still have snow on the ground? Because we got rid of our snow about 2 weeks ago. Corey Ferris, if you can't fix it with vice grips, you're doing it wrong. Oh, I know people who say basically vice grips, big screwdriver, and a roll of duct tape, and they can fix anything. And many of them are right. John Emery says that's why we count tools when working on aircraft. Oh, yes. Surgeons will tell you the same thing. When they do a lot of surgery, a very, very complex, lengthy surgery, they got to do an inventory before they close the person back up again. Because medical tools and also surgical tools and also like sponges. I don't want that to happen. So Jared Draper's getting the kayak out today in Nebraska. Very cool. Very cool. Aaron D says the IRS threatened to arrest me. I told them to come get me. Doug Jones putting out the patio furniture in Markham, Ontario, Canada. Okay. I guess that's an optimist for you. High Pockets, don't forget mechanics wire. What is mechanics wire? Are we talking about the wire like from a wire hanger, or is it less stiff than that? Gary Swift, I count my tools when working with others who don't buy their own tools. I knew guys who worked at gas stations who'd mark their tools in a certain way because they had their own toolboxes. And they got sick of there's always the one guy who keeps his tools really, really clean and all in the right place. There's some other guy who just takes the greasy tools and throws them back in the drawer loose. And it drives the one guy crazy when people are grabbing his tools and throwing them in the wrong box or not cleaning them. So that can be a problem. Robert Lee says, don't forget the hammer. And Dixie Champagne says channel locks, measuring tape, and a torpedo level. MW Duck says duct tape, not duct tape. Actually, that's morphed. Duct tape, of course, was originally duct tape, D-U-C-T, and some people call it duct tape, and I think there's even brands of duct tape that call it duct tape, so it's gotten that way. John B, I've had a magnetic flashlight go to California and back under a semi-truck because it was stuck with the magnet. Oh. Chris Sanders, I keep about 600 pounds of tools in the trunk of my 84 Lincoln. Comes in handy. Also, supposed to give you better traction in the snow, right? Matthew Shostrom says, my brother, dad, and I got different color tools, red, blue, or green. That's another way of doing it, I guess. And what always happens is you got a family with a bunch of people with their own tools, but like one person has the torque wrench, or one person's got the, whatever specialty tool it is. And then it's like, can I borrow that? Don't mess up with it. Oh boy. Fortis Atticus says I get about 5 calls a month from various numbers offering me auto warranty services. I always push one for opt out, but they still call me. That's a scam though. They don't. It'll always say press this number, and all it does if you press the number is it disconnects the call. They'll call you again. They don't care. I mean, they're already violating the law by ignoring the do not call list. So. Gary Weisenberger says duct tape is Kentucky chrome. Quentin Wilson says it was originally duck, D-U-C-K, made by the military. Are you referring to the amphibious vehicle, or are you talking about the tape? Donnie D says JB Weld is a must-have. There's a bunch of those chemicals that either loosen things up or stick them together. They come in very handy. Steve asks, do you think Canada will ever open up the border again with the United States, causing a lot of problems for small businesses? And if you have a relative or love interest across the border? I'm sure it will. I just don't know if it'll happen this summer or next summer. But it's hard to say. As the vaccine's being rolled out, I think you're going to see some of these numbers dropping off dramatically with respect to infections and deaths. So there will come a time where it seems that they'll have to open it back up again. So, and Blaze and Cyrus is happy spring, Steve Lehto and everyone. Doug Jones, I have at least 3 of everything and still can't find them. Motham 51, Florida only has 3 seasons, livable, hot, and you got to be kidding, especially southern Florida, Miami and further south. And I'd prefer an auto says defund the EPA. And says it again and again and again. So you really only need to mention it once. Thank you. Rocky McAllister says, went to college with a bunch of engineers. There are several creative ways to mark your tools. I'm sure there are. Jim Bergen always finds something when I'm looking for something else. Yep. So Ed McDonald says, I unsubscribe to 4 or 5 unwanted emails every day, but they always seem to pop back up again. And that's annoying because, quite frankly, if I have done business with a company and they send me an email, I'm fine. They send me a couple emails, I'm fine. But you know something? There was the company that sold me my boat motor, the 5 horsepower Honda that is on my canoe, was bought mail order because I told the whole story. And I did a video about it, and I had to mail order it to get it, and I got it. The service was great. The help was great. Everything was perfect about the transaction. About 2 months ago, for some odd reason, they decided to just start bombarding everyone with spam in a hope of getting more business. I mean, they had never emailed me before. Every single day, message. And first I was deleting them. Then finally I saw it. He goes, unsubscribe, click here. I clicked. He goes, you're unsubscribed. Next day, got another one. I unsubscribed again, got another. So I had to block them. So now if I ever order something from them again, I have to remember to unblock them. But it's stupid. If you are going to send out spam emails to your clients, people you've done business with, if they say unsubscribe me, you should unsubscribe them. Because now I had a good feeling with these people before. Now I've got a bad feeling. It flipped. I used to recommend them to people. I purposely didn't say their name a minute ago because I don't want to talk about them. It's annoying to me. So, oh boy. Dave Beddoes reminds us that when you lose something, you often find it in the last place you look. Or when you lose something, people go, where's the last place you saw it? Oh, Gordon 861 says, if it's a company I've used and they keep spamming me, I call them and have a go. I years ago had a problem with the business. I'm not going to say their name, but there's a famous business that does business with lawyers. They help lawyers advertise, and they run listings and directories of lawyers. They're in a lot of trouble now because there's no purpose for them to exist. But 20 years ago, they had a booming business. And I had a problem with them at one point in time. And I got really, really angry with one of their sales reps. And I said, you guys never call me again. Leave me alone. I don't ever want to hear you. You guys just pretend I don't exist. And a couple of years went by and they didn't call me. And finally, one day, a guy called me. And I told my secretary, I go, tell him I don't want to talk to him, like that. And she came back because he insists on talking to you. And then I said, tell him that I dare him to speak to me and see if he still wants to talk to me. She came back in. She goes, yeah, he still wants to talk to you. I'm like, okay, cool. And I got on the phone. And the guy starts a sales pitch. I go, dude, shut up. And he goes, excuse me? I go, shut up. I go, you heard me say I don't want to talk to you. You heard me tell my secretary, dare him if he wants to still talk to me. I go, let me explain to you why I don't want to talk to you. And I laid into him, told him all the stuff that had happened previously. I go, do you understand now why I don't want to talk to you? And he goes, yes. I go, thank you. Never call me again. And I hung up. Haven't heard from him since. So sometimes you got to do that, but. Alan Ailyard says, we have 2 seasons, snow and construction. I guess Michigan only has 1 season since they don't do construction. Are you kidding me? Michigan has got a season, but it's a cross between construction and bad roads. Oh boy. Yeah, I haven't looked in a while. We got 472 people in the room, which is pretty cool. And I understand not everyone chats, but you don't have to chat. Feel free to hang out and just listen. See what happens. Gerald Thompson, I just started getting mail from my dead ex-wife. And that's another thing, I've gotten stuff addressed, ex-wives, for instance, and so on. It's like, something, it's bad enough to get spam, but, then you're also making it even uglier there. So Duncan Campbell, do you have a season with good roads? Yeah, it's called Ohio. The people in Michigan will appreciate that. I saw a comedian once who goes, the bad roads in Michigan are so blind people can know when they've left Ohio. Oh boy. Leandro Garcia, have you ever taken an IQ test or joined Mensa? No. Yeah, I'm not, the thing about Mensa is kind of like, I don't know. I've known a couple people who are members, but I don't know. It never did much for me. I don't know if I could get in. I don't know. So, Mr. Phil 1969 says Michigan needs to stop allowing 180,000 pound trucks in their roads. That might make the roads last longer. I don't know much about the trucking industry. And I apologize because a lot of guys who are truckers listen to my show and watch my show. But I do know that the roads in Michigan are horrible. Matthew asks, which roads are better in Michigan or Upper Peninsula or Lower? I don't think it makes a difference. Problem is in the Upper Peninsula, they're just, it's much more snow. They have a shorter construction season in the summertime. And there's a couple of places where they do road maintenance. The only other way is like a way round trip. So it's more inconvenient in the UP to do construction. But I don't know if it's any better or worse above or below the Mackinac Bridge. Robert Lee says Michigan's roads improve with 12 inches of snow on them. They do at times. DJ AM says you can test smart and be stupid. There's always that debate, and I agree. That there's different kinds of intelligence, and we've all met the people who did really, really well in school but didn't understand like how anything worked in real life, or totally lacked common sense, and that can happen at all levels. So the idea that you can take a test and we're going to assign a number to your intelligence is a little bit of a misapprehension of some sort. Steve asks, do the 17-year cicadas come out in Michigan? I believe they do. I've seen some things pop up in the news about that. Pretty Butterflies is still waiting for the LinkedIn video. I'm not sure if I can do a whole video on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn now. Okay. Somehow I got suckered back into that. And my original bad feelings about LinkedIn were when LinkedIn first started. G Vogue says, how can I share this video? When this video is done, it gets posted as a video. Come back and visit the video, and underneath there'll be a button that says share this video. Click share, and it'll let you share it to all the people that you're anybody who follows you on YouTube. If you want to share the video itself onto, like, say, Facebook, you can simply go to the video, start it, and go up to the top of the address bar and copy that URL and then post that like on Facebook. And if you have any trouble with that, email me direct and I'll walk you through it. It's not that hard to do. But LinkedIn, when they first started, and by the way, B.A. Juggalo says, Lehto is my hero. I got all the Juggalos. And the Juggalos, and B.A. Juggalo is my hero. But LinkedIn, when it first started, did the thing where when you joined and you set up your profile, it would just spam everybody in your friends list. And I got emails, people go, Steve, stop. I don't want to join LinkedIn. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I took down my LinkedIn profile, and later on, they very quickly realized that was a bad idea. So a lot of people were complaining about that, so they stopped doing it. And then later on, I heard they even got sued for doing it. So, what are you going to do? Yeah, AC Frazier says, I forgot about that with the other stuff going on, that there's those 17-year cicadas coming back. Well, after 16 years, you tend to forget about them. They don't forget about them. Gerald Thompson says Michigan's road trains actually have fairly light ground pressure due to the number of tires in the road. That's the thing I'm not sure of. I don't know enough about that, because if you see a big truck going down the road, it's got a lot of axles spreading the weight out. It might not be as much as you think because of how that works with the weight and how much is in contact with the ground and so on. So Dave Beto says I'm joining linked out. Larry Visco, have you ever taken any cases of YouTubers having been banned or censored due to political content? No one has ever asked me about such a case. I've never even looked into that before. I mean, I do know that some YouTubers have gotten banned, and I know that some have been censored, likewise on Facebook, but haven't gotten involved in that. Robert Lee says the heavier trucks in Michigan have more axles to spread out the weight. It's the weight per axle that hurts the road. What's killing Michigan roads is the freeze-thaw cycle and poor design. Well, and part of that problem is the freeze-thaw cycle in Michigan. So when it gets really, really cold and it gets really, really hot, stuff expands and contracts, and then you've got cars driving on it constantly during that, that whole process. And so there are ways to make roads that survive that better, but it's extremely expensive. And I know that, for instance, that I think it's, I forgot the name of the connector, the business loop downtown Detroit, where I-75 goes like this. And there's a little segment there. I think it's called 475. But there's a little segment of road there that would take you down to downtown Detroit. And a few years back, they tore that all up and redid it. And it's like the material's like twice as thick. And it costs a fortune to do it that way. And it lasts really, really well. So I know that that's one of the debates is should we just tear them up and redo them every 5 years, or do it right where they last 10? But it costs so much more. So, DJ AM says Iowa roads are bad too. 99 says same in Oklahoma. After every freeze, the potholes are horrible. Or after an extended 100-degree heat in the summertime. Yeah, there's a pothole season basically in Michigan. It's in the spring when we discover all the damage that happened through the last few cycles of temperature changes. Pissed off handicap guy says silence is golden, duct tape is silver. By the way, if you're interested, there's of course Silence is Golden by the Tremolos, but the band The Four Seasons did it as well. Frankie Valli is still around, and him and his guys got together and did via Zoom, in essence, a recording of Silence is Golden. I think 12 different musicians are involved, including Frankie singing lead, and it's on YouTube. Just type in Frankie Valli Four Seasons Live. You'll find it. It is fabulous. Fabulous. Absolutely amazing. And I posted the video on my Facebook page. Said, hey, everybody, check this out. Frankie Valli's still at it. And I got an email from a friend of mine. He goes, Steve, he goes, he's my next door neighbor. I said, what? He goes, yeah, I live next door neighbor. He goes, I live next door to Frankie Valli. And I go, I didn't know that. He goes, you never asked. I'm like, he goes, do you know him? I'm like, I know who he is. I grew up listening to him. I go, I remember when my brothers had, the Four Seasons greatest hits in like 1977 or something. And so, I mean, I've been a big fan my entire life. So the Hoot says, Huva Ilta. I'm mispronouncing it. But I don't know what it means. Good something, right? Oh boy. Retired butcher boy Steve, sorry I gotta go. 2 weeks ago I got my second vaccine. Today I get to hold my 6-month-old grandson for the first time. Congratulations, my friend. And that is as good an excuse as any I've heard. So thank you for being here. And Go have fun. Enjoy yourself. Dan Lofatz says, Steve, would you represent Gil Paisan of Oh Hello fame in his Methodistimola lawsuit from watching late night TV commercials? I have no idea what that means, but I enjoyed reading it. Huva Ilta means good evening. Okay. The Huva part was good. I got that. I just didn't know what Ilta means. Reinhard man, can Frankie still sing falsetto? Yes. It sounds like it's possible that he's lost some of the real power, but the guy's in his 80s, and he knows, and he's in a smaller room, and he's singing a little quieter, but it sounds perfect. And when he's singing, you instantly recognize the voice, and that is so cool. When someone's got that recognizable of a voice, and you recognize it from that far back, and here it is today, in essence, it's absolutely astounding. So I would highly recommend it, that if you enjoy the Four Seasons at all, to go onto YouTube and type in Frankie Valli, Silence is Golden Live, and it's very, very cool. Matthew Quinn, he's 86. Yes. I knew he was in his 80s. I wasn't sure the exact age, just off the top of my head. So Doug Jones going to go back out and do some yard work, enjoying the sunshine. Glad you were here, my friend. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, Reinerman says at 80, I hope to be able to talk, and what's, the guys, if I look that good at his age, I'll be happy. Trust me, I'll be happy. So, Matthew Quinn, you talked about drones yet? Love those videos. Not today. I talk about them when they come up, but it's funny. I put up the video where I talked about the Court of Appeals in Michigan, said specifically that to fly a video drone over someone's home and their property and photograph their property without a search warrant would not be admissible in court as evidence, because it would be considered an intrusive search, and there's no reason they couldn't have gotten a warrant, And so I did the story, and I had a couple people go, you're wrong. Okay. Oh. Jerry Brown, is the Four Seasons music doo-wop? No, not really, but it involved a lot of harmonies and good singing, but it wasn't really doo-wop. Doo-wop's a little bit earlier than that. The Four Seasons came in right at the tail end of doo-wop. I think they had their first big hits in like 64 or 65. And I looked up Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons when I first saw the video pop up this week, and I looked back at how many top 10 songs Frankie Valli or the Four Seasons have had, and it was remarkable, over that length of time. So I hate smartphones. Do you have any more rant videos planned? Not really. Only because if I get inspired, I might make one. But I used to make lists of things to complain about. But it's one of those things where some people liked them and some people thought that was very petty of me. So I put them on a hiatus for now, unless I find one thing that'll actually make a whole video. So Fortis Atticus says the Four Seasons had superb harmony. Yes. And much like the Beach Boys, they were just known as being a good singing group. So David Arnold, I've heard all your podcasts, seen most of your videos. I'm a Ford tech. The Mach-E is awesome, but not really a Mustang, which is what I've been saying all along. You can't call it I don't know why they did that. I mean, I know why. It was a dumb marketing move. They actually thought this will help sell the cars. No one who's a fan of the Mustang is thinking, I need a four-door electric car. But there are people going, I'll buy an electric Ford, but it's not the same people who buy Mustangs. So they shouldn't have done that, I don't think. But what are you going to do? Reinhard Man says a rant video about people asking for a rant video would work. 55 Sedell says, I found more than an hour of an interview I did in film school with my dad on an old DV card, and I'm emailing the files to my family right now, over 12 gigs. Or you could upload it to YouTube, make the channel private, and just share it. That might be easier. But that's always fun when you find something that you shot a long time ago that you weren't even intending to use for any purpose like that. And I posted not too long ago that I found buried in one of my old hard drives a little piece of footage I shot of Milo and Wolfie playing around the dining room table like 20 years ago. And I'd forgotten I had it. I when I saw it, I'm like, I barely remember taking that. And it's, 5 or 10 seconds, but it was so cool to have, so anything you find like that is always priceless. Very, very cool. Sean Keysbury watched your video on different lemon law cases and just saw the one about speeding tickets on VinWiki. I've done 3 videos now that have appeared on VinWiki. We shot 10 or 11. So there's more coming. We covered a lot of ground that day, but it was a lot of fun. And Ed's a great guy. So Dan Lofat at 93, Jackie Mason would say that his voice is best heard at a distance. FDSS is honestly, I film so much. If I ever sort through it all, it'll be a miracle. I remember when I bought a 5 terabyte hard drive, just a portable hard drive. I thought, well, that's big. I now buy 10 terabyte hard drives, and they fill quickly. So I tend to save every video I've posted. I save. At one point, am I saving the raw footage? I don't need to do that anymore. But like when I go out and shoot, like with my GoPros, like in my car or my canoe or on a mountain bike, I always save all the raw footage. I figure I'll use it sometime. And I found some of that stuff that I'd forgotten all about. Oh, I forgot about that. So, but it's cool to have, but it's neat stuff. Fortis Attica says, Finland holds the #1 spot for happiest countries. I saw that several people sent it to me, that Finland was once again named the happiest country on earth. I'm not sure how they did that, how they measure that, but doesn't surprise me. Pine Soul, receive any crazy packages or mail lately to your P.O. box? I get mail almost every day there. I got this week 3 or 4 more T-shirts. I've had people mail me articles that they couldn't find online, so they printed them out and mailed them to me. I've gotten a couple books lately. Nothing crazy, but that's that. I did have a memory pop up on one of my social media things. Says, hey, Steve, here's a photograph from 1 year ago today. And the photograph was of a thing of toilet paper I was holding up on camera here because somebody sent me the first case of toilet paper I got last year. Hollywood Saint 57. Have you ever heard of Bill Handel on the law? Yes. Bill Handel's a California attorney. I think it's out of KFI, but it's out of, I think, San Francisco. He has a syndicated talk show on the law, and he's been doing it for years. It's very, very good. Nationally syndicated, huge audience, very, very entertaining guy, and I like what he does. So the Hool says also don't mess around with Finnish cops. But there's the singing cop. Finland has got a cop. Trying a mental blank right now. I'll think of it in a second. But there's a cop, a Finnish cop, police officer, who's basically like an opera quality singer, and he will sing stuff that they'll shoot films, and they put up the videos, and the videos basically are like almost like public service announcements, or just good public relations advertising for Finnish law enforcement. And he did like a Christmas hymn, and it's in Finnish, but in an old church, and they shot from the outside and then went inside, and as he's singing, it's absolutely beautiful. So if you ever get a chance, look up the singing Finnish policeman. Redisc, how do you find a good attorney or resource for questions about deceptive marketing? There's a bunch of places you can look that stuff up. Deceptive marketing probably is addressed by the Federal Trade Commission. If you look up the FTC's website, it's going to be a Gov website. They'll have it. Gary Weisenberger, have you ever had someone bill your cell phone for non-cell phone related service you did not want? No. It's never happened. I've never had my cell phone hooked up to anything that would allow me to buy something with it, other than, like, say, logging into Amazon and ordering something through Amazon. So, but Tom, once again, Professor, you're the greatest. Got to go without a good excuse. That's okay. Donald Whittemore, Bill Handel is Los Angeles based. Okay, I was close. Jason Johnson, imagine getting arrested while the cop is singing to you. Welsh Dragon 99 says, I can't find the Ben today. You ain't looking hard enough. Okay, hang on a second here. Okay, here he is, but I got to find his name. Petrus Schroederus. It doesn't sound Finnish. It's got more of the southeastern Finland thing to it. But Petrus Schroederus is the Finnish singing policeman. And again, I'm butchering his name. I apologize. Danlo Fats is a 1 petabyte hard drive. Is only $1,600. Is that like 1,000 terabytes? I mean, it's good for my music, but no, I was kidding. Momentum, Cop Rock is back. How did that last a whole season? one of those ill-conceived notions. So Miller Vidatow checking in from Graham, Texas. Thank you for checking in, my friend. Jason Johnson, the unmarked police singer. Mr. Phil, 1969. Would he sing I Fought the Law and the Law Won? Oh, boy. Ilya Alawa says, oh, no. I've missed most of the show. And I apologize, Ilya. I mentioned you last week, but I don't think you were here. I know it's Ilya Alaoya, right? I was not saying Oya before. I was saying Oya, but it's Oya, like O-Y in English, Oya. So the Hool says the Finnish make Finnish versions of everything. You haven't lived until you've heard Metallica in Finnish. I've not heard Metallica in Finnish, but I do know that the Finns love them. They're heavy metal. They got more heavy metal bands per capita, I think, than any other place on earth, which, of course, is why they're so happy. STP World says, Steve Lehto, I was looking into The Who, that is the band, and they were banned from a hotel for exploding a toilet in their room. I vaguely heard that story. They were famous for doing all kinds of crazy stuff on stage and off. They would often wreck their equipment on stage. Keith Moon's drum set would often not survive a good set. Pete Townshend's guitar, likewise, would not survive a good set. And then I know that also there were occasions where they did things like drove cars into swimming pools and things of that nature. So they did that kind of stuff. Those are the good old days of rock and roll, my friend. D. Sherpke enjoyed your book on murder houses. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. American Murder Houses, the book of mine that is least like the others, but it does well. So what can I tell you? Dixie Champagne says, I like the Dead Kennedys. I Fought the Law. I'm not sure if I've heard their version. I know, of course, The Clash did it, but so did Bobby Fuller 4. And then, of course, John Mellencamp had I Fought Authority, and Authority always wins. Or I Fight Authority. And it's like no one had the guts to say, hey, John, you're just ripping off the other song there. So Gary Weisenberger, my college professor, said heavy metal was bad for you. I had high school teachers tell us that. Oh, yeah, rock and roll's bad for you. It actually hurts you. Oh boy. Matthias says Finland has got mosquitoes in the summer. Does it really? I guess they would. They're a forested country. They've got a lot of lakes and trees, and so I guess that would be mosquito country. Dixie Champagne getting the munchies. Time for some eats. Okay, well, it's past the lunchtime here in the Eastern time zone. We're heading towards dinner time, but not quite. So maybe a mid-afternoon snack. Bob Loblaws' blind channel is not what I expected. The problem is, if you don't get them, you wouldn't understand the warning. The warning would be blind channel is a lot like Faith No More meets Linkin Park. And most people would go, who? And if you know who Faith No More and Linkin Park are, you're likely to go, oh, that's blind channels like that, only they're from Finland. But, Yeah, Ilya says rock and roll hurt you so badly you became a lawyer. I actually had a biology teacher in high school claim they had done studies and said that listening to rock and roll music while performing an athletic event would hurt your physical ability. He said if you were to go out, say, and run with nothing in your ears or run wearing a Walkman, the Walkman and the music would slow you down. He actually said that. And I remember at the time going, that can't be right. Stupid. He's like, no, they've done studies on it. They've proven that. Nonsense. I'll tell you right now, I haven't run listening to silence in 30 years. And that would slow me down if I didn't have my music. So what are you going to do? Reinhard Man, if I leave now, will I miss something? The good news is it's being recorded. If you wanted to, you could come back and find out, but probably not. David Cantala says, I just watched Frankie Valli's live video. You should watch his Let's Hang On video done in the same format. No, they did 3 videos. They did Let's Hang On, Silence is Golden, and the third one I didn't care for quite as much. I forgot the name of it. But, yeah. Gary Weisenberg says, hey, Steve, Lincoln Park, Michigan is not that bad. There's also Lincoln Park, Illinois, right? And Lincoln Park, the band, spells their name Linkin, because I think they wanted to get the web address and somebody already had Lincoln Park spelled correctly. Jason Johnson says the weight of the Walkman would slow you down. No, earlier versions of Walkman, they had them that weren't that heavy. It wouldn't be easy to clip on a belt. You had to carry it in your hands. I know because I ran with one. So, but yeah, nowadays, it's actually my phone using a Wi-Fi headset. Rod Johnson says, run with the Chariots of Fire theme, see what happens. The funniest thing about that is, the movie's not bad, but that theme song is so unsports-like. It's slow. That's what the soundtrack to something in slow motion would sound like. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't ever think like Chariots of Fire. That makes me want to go out and run real fast. It doesn't. So, oh boy. Gerald Thompson says, in the mid-'60s, my sister went to Flint to see the Herman's Hermits and complained about the weird warm-up band that broke their instruments on stage, and it was The Who. And that wouldn't surprise me. Believe it or not, I'm pretty certain that the hotel that The Who got in trouble for trashing and driving a car into the swimming pool was in Flint. I think it was. Now, whether it's the same tour or not, I don't know. But there's a lot of great stories out of the 60s about bands that toured together that probably shouldn't have. The most famous one, of course, is Jimi Hendrix opening up for the Monkees, which, by the way, I'd love to see that show. And I wouldn't care who warmed up for who. I like them both. So, Prawn Star says Eye of the Tiger is better. That's another one that did not ever do it for me. I never thought of that as being like. I understand that it's tied to some scenes in movies and so on, but that one never struck me as being like, this is the one to get fired up over. Dixie Champagne, favorite outdoor jog song, Hendrix's Gypsy Eyes. Favorite treadmill work, Zappa's Jazz from Hell. I will have to admit I've never jogged to Zappa. Bobby Brown or Joe's Garage, maybe. The Hool says, in Flint, Michigan, would they even notice someone driving a car into a hotel swimming pool, I guess? Nowadays, no. Back then, yes. Dixie Champagne says, Chariots of Fire theme was popular in figure skating back in the 80s. Oh, yeah, and that's always one of those problems. Don't get me going on figure skating. I could do a rant video on it, but I don't want to. But the thing about figure skating is there's always different fads almost, and one of them is to yank a theme song from a recent movie, hoping that people, when they hear the music, will get that warm feeling they got from the movie and somehow mix it up with their opinion of what's happening on the ice in front of them. And so every time there's an Olympics, you're like, okay, what were the most recent movies that had romantic themes? And that's not as big of a deal now as it was, like, say, 20, 30 years ago, but it was a big deal back then. 99 says, I'm ready for outdoor concerts. What's the best outdoor concert venue in Michigan? That would be Pine Knob in Clarkston, Michigan. It's called DTE Energy Theater. I refuse to call it that. I call it Pine Knob. And it's an outdoor venue. It's an amphitheater where it's got seats and a band shell. So if you're in the seats and it rains, you're okay. And then behind that is a big hill that faces the amphitheater. And so the it's outdoors, and on a beautiful day or beautiful evening, it's just a perfect experience, because if you got seats, you can go sit down, you can get up and walk around. They got drinks, they got mile-long lines to the ladies' room. They have everything, and they'll often have a very, very big national acts will show up there. I've seen a lot of good acts there. I've seen the Bare Naked Ladies there. Blues Traveler, the Beach Boys. I saw the Allman Brothers there. Natalie Merchant, Third Eye Blind. I've seen a lot of good acts there. Psychedelic Furs, and over the years, and it's just great. Now, on the other hand, if you happen to be there on a bad night and it's storming. And you're out near the edge, but you're underneath, all bets are off. All bets are off. And since it is outdoors, I think even if it gets really bad, they may have to actually stop the concert or whatever. But like I said, I've had nothing but good luck there. And if you see a good show there on a good evening, it's perfect. Absolutely perfect. So there's a few other places similar to that. But that's the one I'm most familiar with. It's right off of I-75, about 45 minutes north of Detroit. And like I said, huge national acts show up there, so it's always good. Amy Jo says, Meyer Gardens in Grand Rapids, Michigan has a superb outdoor music venue. Very intimate, about 2,000 people can get in, and they usually have a great lineup. That's pretty good, too, and it's similar probably to, say, Meadowbrook, which is on the grounds of Oakland University. It's a much smaller place, similar, though, where they've got the amphitheater outdoor and then a grass seating also. Slightly smaller acts there, but I mean, I saw Elvis Costello there for the album Imperial Bedroom, that tour, which is a huge tour. I'm not sure why he played there as opposed to someplace else. I also saw Stephen Wright, the comedian, there. You can't have everything. Where would you put it? So, Home 62 Benefits says, just got here and gave a thumbs up. Well, I appreciate that, my friend. We got 177 thumbs ups. Toby Kenobi's taking off. Enjoy this, but need to go. Have a great weekend. Jeff, Summerfest in Milwaukee is being delayed until September this year. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of places that are doing that, where they have something that they normally have early in the year and they're postponing it, hoping they can still do it. I've registered for the Free Press Marathon, which is in October. I'm optimistic. I'm hoping that doesn't get canceled. But there is, for instance, a big race in Flint every year called the Crim. It's a 10-mile loop. I usually do that one. As of right now, they're still calling it a virtual race, which is not a real race. So I'd like to run it, but I won't pay my money to pretend I ran it. Burke Upers says Pine Knob is pretty good, though I think it was much better back in the 80s when things were laid back. You could bring your own beverages. You could bring a cooler into Pine Knob, and they had concessions, but no one in their right mind to pay for them. So somewhere along the line, they wised up and said, you can't bring your own stuff in anymore. And now, you can get like a wine cooler for like $19. And like I said, the line to the ladies' room is, 3 hours long. So Lisa saw Weird Al at Meadowbrook. A nice intimate setting. Diana Paxton, Red Rocks, Colorado. I've seen videos shot there, but I've never been there, and it looks fantastic. So someday I'd like to see a show at Red Rocks. Mac Attacks is the PNC Garden State Center on the Parkway in New Jersey is the same and is a great place to attend a concert. That sounds cool. DJ AM says, saw many great bands at Pine Knob. One of the things I miss most about Michigan. Yoop Turwin says, Steve, if you're ever again in Great Britain, go to Minack in Cornwall, a unique amphitheater on the seaside. I've not heard of it. I want to go to England. I need to get to Glastonbury, my friends. Someday, I need to be at Glastonbury. Someday. Just once. Jason Johnson says people brought more than their own beverages to Pine Knob. The reason I'm laughing, Pine Knob is an amphitheater, so the seats all go down and there's a stage, and it forms a natural bowl. I'm not making this up. And there's a stage, and then there's walls, and then there's a natural backstop basically. And on a calm day, there was enough people in there smoking medicinal marijuana before it was medicinal that you would see a haze settling in on the bowl. And I remember joking with people saying, hey, it smells like Pine Knob around here whenever someone is smoking marijuana. So that's one of those things. So Welsh Dragon 99 says Glastonbury is planned for October. So they pushed it back. And the question is, are they certain it's going to go? Or so I went and looked at their website. I don't know if I would want to go this year with everything else I got to do this year. But I remember looking at that saying they pushed it back, but I think they're still being optimistic. There's a chance it might not happen, right? So I don't know. Titan O'Connell, do you have any favorite two-door vehicles for a tall person driver with legroom and comfort? Yes, my Ford Explorer. I've actually got a two-door Ford Explorer. It's an Explorer Sport, but there aren't that many two-door vehicles that have all the legroom and so on that you like. So, Alan Aylard, Fox in Detroit is a great venue. Yes, it is. I've seen a bunch of good shows at the Fox. I saw Brian Ferry there a few years ago. I've also seen I saw Modest Mouse there about a year ago. I think it was there. Trevor Miller, have you ever accidentally given legal advice and gotten bitten because of it? No, because I generally tell people, number one, my videos are not legal advice. Nothing I say here is legal advice. And if somebody calls me and asks me for advice, I'm very, very careful to tell them, unless I file an appearance for you or you hire me, I'm not representing you. I can give you some advice here, but still on you is what you're going to do unless you hire an attorney. So, it's worth what you pay for it, basically. But no, I haven't. I've had people call me and tell me they're going to do something stupid. They've gone and done something stupid, but not quite the same thing. Burke Upers is my best friend back in high school, wound up moving down the road from the Knob and could hear shows pretty good. Evidently, Bob Seger moved in right around the corner as well. I actually knew somebody very, very well whose parents lived in the neighborhood that was closest to Pine Knob. And apparently, Pine Knob worked out a deal with many of them to give them discounts or even free tickets, something. But they got something to put up with it, basically. And it was one of those things where they probably didn't have to do it, but they did it as a matter of goodwill. And so most of the people in the area just understood, hey, look, in the summertime, there's shows at Pine Knob. Either close your windows or just, hey, let them have their fun. Alan Aylard says, Harpo's was always good. Is it still in operation? I think it is, but I haven't, I haven't been there since 1981. 81 or 82. I worked at WABX, this radio station, and they ran all kinds of stuff at Harpo's that they were sponsoring. And it was almost always local bands, Bittersweet Alley or The Look. And I remember going to see The Look at Harpo's, and a friend of mine was a DJ, and he was emceeing that night. And he walked by, and he was a little tipsy, and he's, hey, Steve, how you doing, man? And he reaches over, and he puts in my hand a bunch of drink tickets. I'm all of 19 years old, and I don't drink, but my friends do. Of course, they're not 21 either. So I don't know what happened at that point. All I know is that we had fun that night. So Matthias says, in Europe, there are some amphitheaters that were built by the Romans in use now 1,500 years later. I believe I saw some concert footage shot. I think it was Peter Gabriel performing someplace. It was obviously an outdoor stone theater someplace, I think in Greece. I think that was it, which that'd be very, very cool. I'd love to see that. Susan Johnson, we want canoe videos. I'll shoot some this year. Didn't get out last year. In fact, the motor never got off the sawhorse. So Burke Huber says that's how Pine Knob dealt with the noise complaints, was by handing out stuff. I'm pretty sure. Brian Wiacek, how do you find a good attorney? The key to finding a good attorney is to ask around. And so what you do is you find out somebody who's either had a legal problem or knows an attorney, and ask them for recommendations. If you ask a couple times, you'll find somebody. But don't just open the phone book and go, oh, this guy's an attorney, I'll hire him. Or the equivalent now, which is the open the internet, I'll hire him. No. Ask around. Because, if you said to me, Steve, if you had this legal problem, who would you take it to? I know who I'd take it to. If I don't, I know how to find that person. And that person would be found by, I'd call a couple attorneys, go, hey, look, I need somebody who can handle this kind of case. Who do you know? And figure it out that way. So Amy Jo says Harpo's is still open. The owner of Blondie's now owns it, and they sold out a show yesterday. And Amy Jo, I'm pretty sure you're the one who told me that last time. So I appreciate that. I can never quite remember that one. Gary Weissenberger says St. Andrews is always a good place too. I saw a bunch of good shows. St. Andrews is a tiny little place in Detroit. It's not in the best neighborhood, but it's about 2 blocks from the law school I used to teach at the University of Detroit Mercy. And it's just a little hall in a stretch of otherwise nondescript buildings. And you go inside, and it's I don't know how else to describe it. There's a stage at one end, and like a wood floor, almost like a gymnasium floor. And I know that every show I went to there would just simply be a couple counters at the back, and they're selling drinks out of like garbage cans filled with ice. And then the show starts, everybody crushes up against the front of the stage. You watch a show. And I saw quite a few shows there back in the 80s. Haven't been there recently. I actually had tickets to see a show there about 3 years ago. Didn't make it, which kind of bummed me out because I wanted to see a show there. Hadn't been there so long. But one of these days, I'll get back down there. Truman H. saw the Misfits at Harpo's. And by the way, the Misfits, of course, the ones who had the shirt with a skull on the front. And many people would wear the shirt not knowing it was a Misfits shirt. Burke Hubris is back in the 80s and 90s. There was, of course, Harpo's, the Token Lounge, Blondie's, Greystone, Gold Dollar, and the Freezer. Yeah, I've heard of most of those. There's always some come and go. I drive by over near Voorhees and M59. There used to be a club there. It's huge. WRIF used to promote stuff there all the time. And it's the building's empty now. I don't know what's there now. Fergus says, Steve, should you engage an attorney beforehand so that when they say if you want to, you can call an attorney, you can actually call an attorney? Otherwise, how do you handle that? Well, you wouldn't have to put an attorney on retainer for that, because what are the odds that you're going to get arrested? But what you want to do is have the name or number of an attorney if you know one, and just call them. So if Fergus, if you were to call me and, hey, Steve, this is Fergus, I'm in jail, I'd go, where are you? And you'd say, I'm, whatever jail you're in. And I go, look, I don't handle that kind of a work, but I'll find you somebody. And then remember, you make the phone call, you get the ball rolling. I'll take care of it. Or you call with your one phone call, you call somebody else and have them get you an attorney. But the idea that, if you can't afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. This is what screws people up, is that one will be appointed for you somewhere down the road, which means you got to shut your mouth now. So that's what always happens, is that people wind up talking before the attorney shows up. Dan Lofat says the look was pretty good. I remember my cousin loved them. He's a really good bass player. There was a guitar player in the band named Randy Volan, who went to Seaholm High School, and my brothers knew him. But I remember seeing him. I saw him play a couple of times. They were pretty big at that time. Local band. They did get a record contract. Got some airplay of the song called "We're Gonna Rock." How about you? But and they actually were playing not too long ago. Again, I guess they get together from time to time and also still play. Home 62 Benefits says the Olympia Stadium on Grand River. That's an oldie. Never got a chance to see anything there. It's kind of like, the Joe Louis Arena was a pretty cool place. Ain't there anymore. Saw some good shows at Cobo, which, Cobo is still there. Alan Aylard says, saw Robert Fripp at Harpo's. Yeah, Harpo's would occasionally land a big name like that, but the problem is that Robert Fripp appeals to such a narrow slice of the audience that he couldn't sell out a larger place. But he's going to get those extremely dedicated fans who show up. Or from a hardcore guitarist in the audience, Buckethead. Buckethead will play the tiniest club someplace and sell it out. But they know approximately how many people he can get in any given city. And if he plays someplace else, Buckethead couldn't sell at Pine Knob. But Richard R. checking out for today. Thanks for another great show. Gerald Thompson in the late 60s, Sherwood Forest and Davison used to have great bands. There's a blast from the past. Yeah, there was a lot of places like that where a promoter would just find a piece of property and then put on shows like every week or every weekend. Sherwood Forest was one. There was also, was it Mount Holly, where in the summertime they put shows on there? And, what else is a place like that going to do in the summertime? And so they would do that. So, but yeah, Sherwood Forest, I was never at Sherwood Forest. That's a little bit before my time, but I know people who were there. Sub GR77 asks, Steve, you ever been to the machine shop? And the answer is yes. Thank you for asking. I actually went to a show within the last year at the machine shop in Flint to see my favorite band, Blue October. And that was cool. I've seen Blue October now 3 times. I saw them twice at the Royal Oak Music Theater, which also is pretty good shows. It's a great venue. And the machine shop is smaller, very small. And the show had to be sold out. It was just packed, wall-to-wall people. And so, it's kind of bad. You got to stand for the whole show. No big deal. But the machine shop was very small. And at one point in time, I was 15 feet from Justin, the lead singer. And, it's kind of cool to be that close to a band that you like and actually see a show. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, the machine shop is tiny. Very, very small. Dixie Champagne saw Robert Fripp at the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall in Troy, New York. The Troy Savings Bank Music Hall. I don't know why these modern names don't do it for me, I seem to recall there's like 1-800-WILL-SUE-FOR-YOU stadium in Florida, that kind of thing. Mr. Phil 1969. Now we're all putting Steve's phone number in our wallets to call if we ever get arrested. I'll come into my office one Monday morning with the light blinking. 13 of you got arrested one weekend. Kotaxista, Robert Fripp inspired me to make my own loops, the reel-to-reel using an electrified bassoon. That's actually funnier, assuming it's true and literal. I mean, it's one of those things that almost sounds like it could have a bunch of euphemisms in there, but I know what you're talking about. But oh boy. Ed McDonald said, I saw Elvis Presley in Shreveport, 1974-75. Yeah, Elvis passed away in 77. And I know he was touring heavily right up to the very end. And I know he played in Detroit at the Pontiac Silverdome. And it may have been the first show there or one of the first shows at the Silverdome. Silverdome's gone now, but it's where the Detroit Lions played their brand of football for a few years. And Elvis, I think, sold the place out. So did, like, say, Led Zeppelin and The Who and so on. But, Elvis, but I said he died in 77. I know that because he died the same week that Bobby Isaac died. I wrote a book about Bobby Isaac. Burke Uper says, good to see the show, unlike many young people that watch the show through their cell phone. That's one of those things. I will admit, at one point in time during the show, I realized I'm this close to the guy. I took my phone, I went click, 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 took a couple pictures, put the phone back in my pocket. There were people there for the entire show doing this, literally for an hour and a half, just the whole time. And it's like, doesn't your arm get tired? I mean, seriously. And they're thinking, well, I'm going to record it. I can watch it later. Well, you're here now. Watch it now. So you got to draw the line somewhere. Dave Beto says, I think I saw Elvis yesterday's hanging out with the captain of the Titanic and Jim Morrison of the Doors. 90 knots. I never used my phone at a concert. Ruins the experience. Well, like I said, I did do that so I could get one picture just to remind myself how close I was to the stage. But I didn't hold it up for an entire song. And I'm not going to sit there and record it because there's no way you can record it and get any kind of inkling as to how good it sounds live, so. Gary Swift, have you heard the rock band Greta Van Fleet? They're from your area. Of course I have. I've got one of their shirts. I wear one of their shirts in the rotation. Greta Van Fleet's from Frankenmuth. Although many people say Saginaw because Saginaw is the nearest big town to Frankenmuth. Frankenmuth's a small town east of I-75, a little bit north of Birch Run. And it's a small town. Frankenmuth, of course, has a German heritage to it. And if you go there, it looks like it's a preserved little German town. It's a tourist trap thing. But I worked at a radio station that was actually based there for a couple of years, playing oldies at WKNX, one point Frankenmuth, and WKNX, Saginaw, and then Frankenmuth. But Greta Van Fleet, I like them a lot. They've been on Saturday Night Live, a couple other places. One of the bigger things to happen out of Michigan in rock and roll music for some recent years, at least. 90 Knots, have you or anyone heard from Johnny Knoxville lately? Yes, I have. He's commented on some videos of mine in the last few days. I think he's simply busy on weekends. Nick Barchet says Frankenmuth has Christmas all year. You're referring, of course, to Bronner's. There's a store in Frankenmuth called Bronner's, and it's this huge Christmas superstore. And when I say huge, I mean huge with a capital U. It's huge. And just as you come into town, you go underneath the Welcome to Frankenmuth. I think it's Will coming, and Welcome to Frankenmuth. And there it is, this gigantic store with a huge sea of a parking lot around it. And last time I went by there was lines to get in. And it's like that all year round because it's Christmas headquarters all year round. It's all they do. And people go there just to shop for Christmas stuff. So. Kotaxista says, well, just in case you forgot, Johnny Knoxville would remind us that it's 60 degrees and fair in Bad Axe, Michigan. Service Dog Academy says, I got to see John Williams conduct Star Wars live. Best day of my life. That'd be cool. There's some things like that where you might not think necessarily that you like a certain kind of a music, and there's certain bands that I don't like. that much. Like I've never owned an REO Speedwagon song. I've never bought their records or whatever, And a friend of mine in high school said, Steve, I've got tickets. Let's go see him. And I'm like, I'll go see him. Turns out I liked the show. I didn't go out and buy their music, but it's one of those things. So, and Nick Barchet says, I saw the Ventures at a tiny club in Cleveland. Of course, the surf music, the Ventures, the kings of surf music. And Sheila West says, I got towed in Philadelphia once. They were just throwing out important experiences here. There you go. Elias says, I once had a nightmare about a mall that had Christmas all year round. It's kind of dark, I guess. Oh, boy. And the Fuse Man says, Lou Reed was a good show. Yeah. You just remind me, I saw the Tubes back in 1981, back when Talk to You Later was a big hit. I've seen a lot of shows and I forget about some of them sometimes. Oh boy. And Brenda Sullivan says, I saw The Dead in Buffalo in 93. Nothing's ever matched up. I know people who were really into The Dead and would always rave about how good their concerts were. So there you go. And Kotax says there's an internet radio station that plays Christmas music year round. And that's one of the scarier things that happen in radio, commercial radio, is radio stations started going all Christmas earlier and earlier and earlier. And the weird part is they proved it actually works. Ratings are good. People want to hear that. At least some people do. Other people, no. But some people want to hear it. So anyways, I got to get going. We've been here for almost 2 hours. I appreciate it, guys. I had a great time. I'll be back, as always, twice a day from here till next Sunday, 1 o'clock. Until then, behave yourself. Bye-bye.